Okay, today we're going to talk about word order. This is kind of tricky, so pay close attention. German and English do not follow the same word order patterns all the time. So in German, there are basically three types of word orders that you will have to know. The first type is a basic sentence. In a basic sentence in German, the verb is in the second position. So, if you have a sentence like, I like to work, you can tell what the verb is right away here. That's our English infinitive, right? To work. Like is not a verb in German. So, we have to put our verb to work in the second position. So it's going to go right here. And notice it's been conjugated to agree with our subject. Gern is the word that expresses enjoyment or means like. So I like to work in German is Ich arbeite gern. Now, as you can see, that does not translate literally. If I translated that word for word, it would be I work like. I work like. This is what we call a word order sentence. The verb has to be in the second position and it has to be conjugated to agree with the subject. The second type of basic word order is a question with a question word. The verb is again in the second position. So when we have a question like, where do you work? This is a question with a question word. Who, what, when, where, how, or why. So just like in English, we're going to start with our question word, where, wo. Verb must be in the second position. Work is the verb. Now, if you notice in English, we have two verbs. We have do and work. In German, you're only allowed to have one verb. So between these two verbs, do and work, which one of those verbs carries the meaning of the question? It's work. That is your main verb. That's the verb that carries the meaning of the question. So again, it must be in the second position. So we start with our question word, wo. We put our verb second, and we make sure our verb is conjugated to agree with our subject. The st goes with the do. Wo arbeitest du? Verb second. The third type of word order is the most difficult for most students. This is a question without a question word. Do you work? Are you going? Is he nice? These are all questions that do not start with who, what, when, where, how, or why. Now in English you will notice we start with the verb. Verb is in the first position. Just like in German, German also has to have the verb in the first position. But where it gets tricky is, in English we have more than one verb. We have do and we have work. But we can only have one verb. So the verb that's carrying the meaning in this question is work. So I'm going to take out the do and take work and put it in the first position. So again, verb in the first position when it is a question without a question word. Arbeitest du? Work you? It does not translate literally, but that is what you would want to do. You can only have one verb, so we get rid of the do and we put work in its spot. We conjugate it so that it agrees with the subject. Do you work? Arbeitest du? Verb second in a basic sentence, verb second in a question with a question word, and verb first in a question without a question word. So now let's look at some examples. In the dark yellow, I have highlighted the verbs in English. So let's start with our basic sentence column here. In a basic sentence, the verb has to be second, and it has to be conjugated to agree with the subject. So here we have the basic sentence, I am flying to Germany. We can only have one verb, so we're going to get rid of the am and go with the verb that has the meaning, flying. Ich fliege nach Deutschland. The verb is in the second position and it's been conjugated to agree with the subject. The next example is he is going home. In English, we have two verbs, is and going. In German, you're only allowed one verb. So we're going to get rid of the is because we don't need it. It has no meaning. And so we're going to put go in the second position and conjugate it for he. Geht nach Hause. In the third example, again, we have two verbs, are working. We are working. We're going to get rid of the are because it carries no meaning, and we're going to conjugate working. We takes the infinitive, so it's just a two-word sentence. Wir arbeiten. Now we're going to look at the second column here, which is a question with a question word. So the first one's very simple. Where are you? The question word comes first. The verb has to be second, and then the subject. So this one is one of the rare instances when the English word order and the German word order are identical. Wo bist du? Wo bist du? Verb second. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. We have a question with a question word, but again, we have two verbs. So we're going to get rid of the are and take the verb that has meaning, going, and stick it in the second position and conjugate it to agree with the subject. Remember, do always takes the ST form. You can remember that by thinking of the word dust, D-U-S-T. So let's start with our question word, which is wann, and then we're going to put our verb and conjugate it. Wann gehst du? Verb second, verb conjugated. Only one verb. Where are you living? Question with a question word. I forgot to highlight living. Living should be highlighted. We're going to take out the are because it has no meaning, and we're going to use this as our verb and put it in the second position and conjugate for you. Wo wohnst du? Does that question sound familiar? Now the hard ones. Questions without question words. Do you work? Is he going? Does she like to fly? Two verbs. We're going to get rid of the do, and these are the only type, this is the only type of word order where the verb comes first, just like it does in English. Verb first, verb first, verb first. It's tricky because we have more than one verb, so we have to remember to get rid of that extra verb. So this one's going to be arbeitest du, conjugated for do. Is he going? We're going to get rid of is and put going in its spot and conjugate for he. Geht Does she like to fly? We're going to get rid of the does and use the verb that has meaning, which is fly, and put it in that spot first. We're going to conjugate it for she. Fliegt sie gern? So now you know the three types of word order. Basic sentence, verb second. Question with a question word, start with your question word and put your verb second. And the tricky ones, questions without question words. One verb, put it at the beginning. Don't forget, in German, you're only allowed to have one verb.